Hello, Edumagicians. Welcome to the Edumagic podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of Edumagic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
I'm Andrew Murata, host of the Education, Leadership, and Beyond podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, Edumagicians, and welcome back to the Edumagic podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and today I have with me Christina Hidek. And we're going to be chatting about family and teacher relationships and being able to have families join us on that educational journey in our classrooms. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm really excited to talk with you.
I'm excited to have you on as well. Would you be able to share with my listeners a little bit about who you are and your role in the education space?
Absolutely. So I am a parent, so I am not a teacher. I am the daughter of a teacher. Actually, she had her doctorate in urban education, so I'm well versed in everything involving in getting your doctorate. I even transcribed some of her interviews because she had a interview-based dissertation, or part of her research anyway. But I am a parent of a 8th grader and an 11th grader, and I have been actively involved as a PTA leader in my children's school pretty much from the get-go. Mm-hmm. And so I come from before I had kids, I was a litigation attorney, and then kind of got out of that after I had kids because that's not really a sustainable way to be. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week. Like in the office and playing the FaceTime game and all that jazz. And that just wasn't the way I wanted to be able to have a family. And so once I had my kids, then I started working as a professional organizer, and then at the same time kind of got involved in my children's school as a parent volunteer for my second unpaid, or my second job that's unpaid.
But it's a great job, right?
It is. And I would not take back anything about any of the time that I've given. So
awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you on the show from the parent perspective. And, just being able to partner with families and parents in education. I know we like default to guest readers or career week or career day, but as a parent volunteer, there's so much families can bring to the table when it comes to working with teachers and with school administration. So let's start with the why. So why is it important partnering families and educators? Why is this an important part of teaching and education? How does this help the student? How does it help the school, the community?
Right. So I always ask, why not?
I like the way you think.
So I just think it's really integral. And when I look at the advantages, there's just advantages all the way around. For teachers, I have a really strong position about teachers. I am a fierce advocate. I think that too many demands are placed on teachers. They are unrealistic demands, and they're constantly changing. And I think it is sad part of our educational system that's the reality. But I have that perspective being the daughter of a former educator. And so I view the role of the parent is to kind of help support the teacher, take some of the weight off of their shoulders when possible. And the reason that I have always been involved, because I ultimately, at the end of the day, I want the best for my kiddos. I want them to be happy. And I recognized pretty early on that a happy teacher makes for a happy kid, makes for a happy parent.
Yes, it is. Like you said, it's all the way around.
That's right.
Vibes.
That's right. It's like the kids get so much out of seeing their parents involved. Mm-hmm. I think they've done studies to show that kids are more successful in school. They stay in school, they learn more, they do just better overall when the parent is involved. I think teachers enjoy having involved parents. Of course, there are some that always cross over the line. There's always that one that hasn't gotten the memo about the appropriate behavior or the appropriate amount of contact. But for the most part, parents really just are trying to do their best to help their kid and recognize what teachers are managing and what also administrators. I think it's just it's a rough system right now.
Mm-hmm. And the more help we can get, the better in our classrooms.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we know that as teachers, there's lots of ways that we can reach out and get in touch with parents beyond that parent-teacher conference. So there's tools like Remind, there's classroom newsletters, there's classroom websites. What are some strategies that you recommend teachers using getting in touch with the families of their students?
Because of my history of involvement with my PTA, and if your school doesn't have a PTA, then you probably have a PTO or some kind of version, right? Because PTA is like the brand name of parent group organizations, and PTO is like the generic name. So like facial tissues is to Kleenex or Puffs, right? So it's all kind of the same thing. It's just a different spin. And I explain this, Sam, just because some people think, well, I have a PTO that's totally different than a PTA. It's like, no, it's substantially similar. Or I have a homeschool association. That's not a PTO. Well, it is. Like any kind of like there's a million different, words for snow. If you're an Eskimo, kind of the same thing. There's a million different varieties of PTOs, but at the end of the day, they're all kind of doing the same thing. There to support the school community and make it a better place for everyone. So like I said before, just have the teachers get like really involved with, or not, you don't have to get really involved, but just connect with your with your building PTO. Those parents already are on board as being ambassadors to support teachers. So it makes sense to kind of loop them in and get their support when needed.
And as teachers, we can just ask our administration about, when the PTO meets, or is that information we can have, pretty accessible as new teachers?
Absolutely. And really, there should be a teacher liaison, right? Because teachers have a different point of view, a different perspective, especially if you don't have a great relationship with your building administrator, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's tension there. And so I love when I have a teacher liaison. And so this year I actually partner, because I'm in my role in my district, I am the council president, and the PTA council kind of not oversees, but gets all of the individual school PTA units to kind of work together. Mm-hmm. And so I met with the teachers union president and said, how can we work together? How can we support you? Because this has been a rough time and everyone's feeling disconnected. It'll help bring us together as a community, but also we'll get things done. We'll help each other get what we need. Because there are a lot of ways that our interests as teachers and parents are aligned. I'd say they're more often aligned than misaligned.
Right.
And so really harnessing the power of your existing PTO can be a great way to get what you need. Because sometimes I've had teachers come to me and say, I can't go to the administrator with this. Even if they're like a fabulous administrator, for whatever reason, they may need a back channel. Parents are a great way to get there.
That's a great piece of advice. And you mentioned, getting in touch with our PTO or PTA. What can a PTO or a PTA help us with?
They can help with funding. If you have specific classroom budgetary needs, let's say you need something as basic as a new carpet, right? A new rug for your little ones to gather on. Or let's say you have an idea you need to expand your classroom library. Or let's say you go to a conference and you discover this great new program that you think the entire school really ought to be using, but it's just not in the school's budget. Special items like that, the PTO can fundraise for or use their what they already have raised to help pay for that.
Interesting. Nice. Fantastic. So we know that families are busy. We are all busy. What are some ways that teachers can reach out and still connect with those families, even though they are busy? Maybe they can't come to a PTO meeting or they can't volunteer in the classroom. What are some other ways we can work together with those families?
For the younger age set, so I'd say like grades 5 and under, it really helps if every classroom has a room parent who can just be like the chief communicator for the class, and it helps from the teacher's perspective so that they don't have to go to many different people to get their needs met. They can just have one dedicated person who they go to and say, Sally, I want to do a Polar Express party, or I want to do a readathon, or just pick whatever your goal is that you need a little extra help with, whether it is supplies, whether it's time in the classroom, or preparing materials for a unit. If like in kindergarten, or was it first grade, I had one teacher who just was like really heavy on the paper resources. So there was a lot of copying and cutting and trimming, and they were intricate. I was like, Mrs. Grist, I love you, but good Lord.
I'm getting paper cuts over here.
Well, I should have a certificate in like master paper on jammer from the copier. So
I feel like everyone should have that certificate. I have successfully unjammed a copier. Those are great. I love that, having a room parent idea for teachers, just a point person to go to.
Yeah, and that's something else the PTA can, or PTO can. I'm just going to say PTO from now on, but I mean PTO,
Sure.
PTA.
I gotcha.
They should just go to their PTO and see if their PTO can start a room parent program, because that's a lot to ask. The teacher might not know who is actually responsible enough to where they won't just pick their friends to come into the classroom and volunteer, for example. So the PTO can be a big help in helping to coordinate all of that. And so again, it just takes one more thing off of their plate. So teachers don't have to worry about it. They know they're going to have a contact person who will connect them with both the classroom parents as well as the PTO.
Nice.
It's
Awesome.
like a good conduit. I look at it because it really should be a two-way street of information flow.
Right. So, Christina, we can think of ways that parents and families can be involved, sure, very easily with the younger grades. But as a parent of an 8th grader and an 11th grader, what are some ways families can contribute in the middle and the secondary years of their child's education?
That is a fantastic question, because teachers, nobody's ever, they don't want you in the classroom at that point. I think that it really shifts to more the fundraising for the grants at that point, that the classroom grants. I have been a chaperone, so on field trips, as limited as they have been especially recently.
In recent years.
Yeah, there have been no field trips of any sort. I think it's just being supportive. I think that teachers I think one thing that could be improved by my own kids' teachers is maybe being a little more transparent about their needs, like what they need with. I think at that age set, my experience has been, I say, I'm willing to do anything. And I'm thinking of one teacher in particular who knows that I'm really involved because she started coming to the PTO meetings and actually turned into the building, like the teacher liaison. So she's never asked me for anything. And it's like, my kid is in your class. Like, what do you need? I guess it's okay to be transparent. I guess like giving teachers permission to be transparent about whatever they might need. Yeah. And as far as the parent involvement, I think it's just going to PTO meetings and being there at the ready, and then communicating with the teachers and letting them know about funding opportunities. Yeah. Because there's, and maybe not even ones that the PTO itself is doing. I know that my particular unit stopped offering teacher grants, not because we didn't have the money, but because the teachers actually stopped using us for them. We were like, we couldn't throw money at people because there's a community-based organization that gives away a lot more money at a time. So they were just using that. And we're like, okay, well, they have that. they were working with like a larger philanthropic foundation. It's like, okay, they have that funding source. So now we can use that money for something else.
Right.
So, and we shifted it to like staff appreciation and like things like that, just to try and help, because again, everybody who's involved kind of gets, we've gotten the memo about how stressful like testing month is and all of that.
Oh yeah.
Good stuff.
And that's like now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of those other options of outreach that the PTO can do beyond being a room parent and working with a specific teacher. What are some other initiatives that PTOs can do to help support the school?
I think passing levies, we've been involved with that in the past, like literally just walking the streets, handing out flyers. That's important, especially if you have a community who has to get their funding through levies. That can be a frustrating process. We have been unofficially asked to help with, or can help. This is like a very fine line to be walking. When there has been a contract negotiation going on with teachers and the administrators, that's a tricky one for parent volunteers to walk. But I've walked it, and one time I just had to tell a teacher, I'm like, that's too much. I can't do that. But I can help in other ways. Like, you want me to put a sign in my car that says to support you. You want me to do other things like that. That's another less obvious way. But a lot of that support comes just because you build relationships when you're working with these parents, when you're asking for help, when you're inviting them in, when you stop them in the hall and tell the parent about something funny that their kid did. That's going to and kind of ingratiate that parent to you. And you're like, oh, that's really awesome. Because that's one of the reasons why I keep sticking around as a volunteer, is because I recognize there are all these unofficial little perks.
Right.
So, because I did have, especially in elementary school, when there were cuter things to say. I mean, that 17-year-old is not so cute anymore. But I remember a time when the music teacher stopped me in the lower elementary school and said, your son said the most sweetest thing today, and stopped to tell me, and it's not something she would have taken the time to email me about. And I was really grateful, that I was there. But that just helped me feel much closer to that teacher. And it's like, teacher, what do you want? I will give you anything.
Yeah, sure. And it just solidifies that bond.
Well, yeah. And the feeling of community that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And I think that the workload, especially coming off of the last couple of years, it can feel like we were all just kind of in our own little boats trying to keep afloat. But really, we were all in the same water and should have been reaching out to kind of hold on to each other's oars to stabilize everyone. So,
Christina, this has been a fantastic conversation. Lots of ideas have been shared about how teachers can reach out to the PTO, how the PTO can support, have that supportive role as a parent for the educators in the classroom, and just be there to be another set of hands in the classroom. And I love the ideas that you had shared for parents to get involved throughout that K-12 experience. How can my listeners get in touch and learn more about the work that you do?
Sure. So I should have said at the beginning, I am such a volunteer nerd that I actually started kind of a business about all of this. It's called PTO Answers. So your listeners can head to, I will have a fun little freebie available for them if they go to ptoanswers.com/teachers. Give them more ideas for connecting and working effectively with parents, because I know
being able to work effectively with parents, that sounds fantastic, like a fantastic resource for the new and future teachers that are listening in today. Thank you so much, Christina. Is there any other things you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, just keep on rocking. You guys are awesome.
I love it. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Sam.
And there you have it, Edumagicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more Edumagic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram @sfessage. Until next time, you have the Edumagic within you.